Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the opening round, the second round of the PS4 F1 2017 Esports Championship. Today, we are at the Bahrain International Circuit for the second round of this championship. You can see the championship standings currently on screen from the last time out in China, and remarkably, it was Big C who took the victory in the most dramatic of circumstances. Hopefully, we have some drama of a different kind tonight. I'm Ali Kidd, and joining me to talk you through all of tonight's proceedings is Alan Cavey.
It's nice to be back for the second out of 3 rounds in this Esports Championship.
So here we go then for qualifying here at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we've seen in the last 2 races qualifying has been really quite important. It is surprisingly difficult to overtake around here. From my own experience in the evaluation races, it's actually been pretty difficult to get close to people. It's a well-known fact that the slipstream on this game is nowhere near as strong as it was on F1 2016, so that makes qualifying all that more important, Alan.
Definitely. I think this is the 3rd time I've commentated a Bahrain Grand Prix within these last 5 days with the evaluation races happening on the weekend. So I mean, I have decent experience to say the least, but a lot of these drivers are going to be going out in the very beginning, set some banker laps, but obviously I can see every single driver exiting the pits, and it is going to be a very interesting qualifying session, to say the least. I remember in the other 2 sessions I was in, half of them went back in, put on new tires, lowered the fuel mix even more so the car would be lighter, to have a faster car. They went out and actually set good times. However, I do believe qualifying will be really, really close. I mean, the other 2 sessions, one session I was in, it was between 5/100ths of a second. It was just very, very close. And I know qualifying is usually fantastic with it shortened as usual. And I'm looking on board with Jemzoh. I believe he was the first one out on circuit.
He's got plenty of clear air out. Oh, he's actually got Toro Rosso in front of him. But aside from that, he's got plenty of clear air. And Jemzoh, he finished 2nd in his evaluation race on Monday behind myself, actually, and David Greco just behind him, which was one hell of a race. So hopefully we'll see something similar to that tonight. The pole time we saw on PC last night was an incredible lap time. It was a 27.7. And if we get anywhere near that tonight, I think it would be quite a feat. It was Enzo Benito, I think, who got pole yesterday on the PC side, and it was like nothing I've ever seen before. To do a 27.7 is just out of this world. It was 3/10 faster than the Xbox pole, and I would expect pole here today. If I had to make a prediction, it would probably be 28 flat or 27.9 at a stretch. I can't see us going too much faster than that.
Actually, these cars are very, very fast compared to the previous years. Actually, I looked it up, and there's some track facts about this circuit. Obviously, the fastest lap is even that the circuit has for the Grand Prix circuit is actually slower than that. It was held by Pedro de la Rosa, the McLaren, in 2005, a 1:31.447. And obviously, these cars are going so fast that is just smashing those records. Also, speaking about the track facts, the length is 5.412 kilometers, and miles is going to be 3.363 miles, and it has 15 turns. So the difference from Shanghai last week is that it has 1 less corner on this circuit. However, it's still going to produce a fantastic race, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. I think always around Bahrain, not only is qualifying very close due to just the nature of the track, the races are always incredibly exciting because there are simply so many overtaking opportunities, and because there are so many straights and there's so many opportunities for DRS, it is relatively easy to follow. The dirty air effect isn't too bad as we see Jemzoh run off the track enough to use first gear. I think he'll probably be backing out of that one, which indeed he has. I've lost what I was talking about now. That corner that Jemzoh has just gone through, he's just proved is one of the most difficult on the entire track. I think it's 10 and 11, that corner. It is so difficult. You either lock the inside front, lock the rears, and either of those are going to put you in a very sticky situation.
Yes, definitely. So some of these corners are very, very hard to maneuver around, and I'm not exactly sure. I mean, was it? I think it was not turn 9 and 10 that he was in. I'm looking at the track map right now. I think it was 9 and 10 when he was towards that back straight. But anyway, Pico goes for the fastest lap. Then Aresti goes for the fastest lap, a 1:28.4. However, many of those laps will be broken towards the end of the qualifying session with 8 remaining. I believe we're already almost halfway through this session, and just time flies when a lot of these drivers are out on track trying to go the fastest that they can.
Agreed, and we're on board with Alex currently into the final corner. The man who finished 2nd last time out in China, as Magic gets the fastest lap of the session with a 28.3. What is it going to be for Alex as he comes up to the line in the Ferrari? It is not fastest, interestingly enough. I think as I mentioned, pole is probably going to be either very low 28s or high 27s, which, and I think the times we're seeing at the moment proves track evolution is a massive factor in these qualifying sessions. Now the track gets so much faster right at the end. There is a genuine benefit now to being the last person to cross the line, which does make qualifying sessions very, very exciting. You never know who's going to be on pole until right at the very end.
Yeah, definitely. Something I keep noticing about these qualifying sessions, a lot of drivers go push for the hardest. They, again, like I keep on mentioning, they lighten the fuel load. They go for the fastest lap towards the end of qualifying session because they know every other driver is going to do that. Obviously, in the beginning, they just want to get ready for the track conditions, see what they need to take notes on towards the end of qualifying session, see if there's any adjusting that they can do with the car, maybe just, again, lighten the fuel load. But then again, towards the end of the session, a lot of cars will just be flying more than, or obviously more faster than they have been right now. But as we come across with less than 7 minutes remaining, I mean, past 2 minutes, I think the fastest lap time has actually stayed the same, believe it or not, which is a little surprising because I think there's at least 15 cars on the circuit.
And there's definitely plenty of time to find on what we've seen so far as we're watching Tyrrell Manu Rodri go through the middle sector. Oh, that's a big slide. Oh, big snap as Jemzoh at the fastest lap. But Tyrrell Manu Rodri is in the wall. He has lost a wheel at the hairpin. A huge moment. That is very, very embarrassing for Tyrrell Manu Rodri as he drops it on his qualifying lap. And he will be starting from the very back of the grid. That was incredibly dramatic. He just had a huge oversteer moment through turns 5 and 6 and just completely lost it into the wall as Alberto sets the fastest lap of the session so far with a 1:28.3. The times are really starting to tumble now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we just a course from 7 minutes to 6 minutes. Everything can happen in a blink of a second. Obviously, you saw Tyrrell slide off the track and retire, and a couple other drivers going for the fastest lap. I mean, it shows that time is very, very valuable when it comes to auto racing. And obviously, right now, I'm on board the B Colt. He's standing in 13th. He's very, very low on fuel. Again, something we forgot to mention that sometimes these drivers will lower the fuel load so much when you go out on circuit, you may actually run out of fuel, maybe on your in lap or maybe on your second flying lap. It just comes down to basically the final seconds that you have of the lap. And you know, now with 5.5 minutes remaining, actually looks like B Colt is coming in. But something to mention, B Colt does have a broken wheel. So if he does anything in this Grand Prix, that is the reason why. He kept mentioning it in the chat, so I thought we'd bring it up as well.
Yeah, B Colt does have a broken wheel. Currently struggling with force feedback problems, which he has mentioned a few times to both of us, so that is why he may be struggling a little bit tonight. But while we have a bit of a quiet moment in this qualifying session, it might be a good time to talk you through the championship standings at the moment. So as it stands, after an unbelievable performance last week, after what he described as the performance of his life in China, Big C is the current championship leader with Alex in second place, the person who you would 100% have expected to prevail in the situations that we had in China, being such a good strategic driver. To see him not come out on top in essentially what was a 1v1 situation at the end was a little bit surprising, but it was indeed Big C who pulled out something the likes of which we have never seen before, with an underdog performance that will probably be remembered for a very long time. It was Alberto who came home third in the Mercedes after battling with J Thorn quite a lot in the race. Thorn actually finished down in 10th, which he was pretty disappointed about, having been so far up the order for the majority of the Chinese Grand Prix. To finish in 10th was really quite disappointing for him. Aresi, the reigning AOR champion, finished in P8, with Nico Fior, the pole man and the man who led the majority of that race, down in P7, with GPT champion Ollie D in 6th and F1 Italian legend F1 Italian Magic in P5, with H Racing Green in a very strong P4 as well. So that is how it stands coming into today's Bahrain Grand Prix, and we are all set up for a pretty titanic championship battle as we go on from here.
Definitely, like you mentioned before, many expected Alex or Nico to prevail in Shanghai. Well, not what many drivers don't realize about racing. It's not just how fast you are. It's about obviously planning and the strategy that goes involved. Obviously, luckily, we're in Bahrain and 99% sure it's going to be dry today. So obviously not much of that will be involved. But in Shanghai, it was, of course, from dry to wet, back to dry conditions. And really, it's not only about the fastest drivers, but the smartest driver knowing what to do. So as we have 3 minutes left, I think most of these drivers have gone on the super soft. I actually think every driver has gone on the super soft tire. So not much strategy involved in in this qualifying session.
No, not at the moment. I think, having watched the previous 2 races, almost all of the drivers, if they start inside the top 10, will be going for a super soft medium strategy. That seems to be the fastest way around this circuit in a 50% race, so I would be surprised to see anybody doing anything other than that, in all honesty. The two-stop doesn't seem particularly competitive at all, and the mediums really do hang on quite well. And we saw several people in the evaluation races setting their fastest lap of the race at the very end of the race, on the final lap, on that set of medium tyres. So they really don't go off that much at all, despite picking up quite a lot of wear. So I imagine we're going to see most people on a one-stop strategy regardless of where they start. I'm currently on board with Jemzoh, who put in a 28.3 or 28.4 earlier in the session, and I'm fairly sure he will be looking for pole here. He's often been regarded as something of a qualifying specialist. He's had several tracks on F1 2016 where he put in just stellar performances, and I think we could potentially be seeing something similar today.
Yes, definitely. When we go down to the last 2 minutes of qualifying and we talk about the fastest lap times, you know there'll be at least 3 to 4 transitions for provisional pole position. But again, I'm still on board with Jemzoh, and I do believe, I think he will improve on his lap time within these next 2 minutes. Obviously, he's going to push, obviously, for very hard conditions. Obviously, I'm going to switch on boards because there are a lot of drivers that are trying to do the same exact thing. Because with 1.5 minutes remaining, they're at least half the field are going to go for at least pole position. They're thinking, okay, this is the time where I can prevail, try and go for the pole position. Half of the field will be thinking like that, and that's why every single driver needs to be on attack mode in qualifying, and that actually get them ready for the race start, actually. But speaking about the race start, last week's race start, there's only one person involved in a collision, but other than that, it was actually pretty clean. However, today, knowing that the points are already set on the board, and it was a chaotic first race where the points are all the way, obviously not, I wouldn't say the fastest drivers at the top, but obviously, and speaking about fast driver, Marco Ganu goes across the line for the fastest lap with 1 minute remaining in qualifying, but like we mentioned before, obviously, the points are all shifted around, so obviously drivers trying to get redemption that just had bad strategy calls, like Nico, he may be trying to come back and obviously get a better run today, and this is one of the tracks to do it. Obviously, with no rain involved, I think he'll have a pretty good shot at least trying to get a podium finish.
I think with no rain involved, we're probably less likely to see a miracle story like we saw last week with Big C. We are fairly sure, given that we were in a desert, it is going to stay dry. We have less than 40 seconds remaining of this qualifying session here. On board with Jemzoh into the final corner. It's been a fairly tidy lap so far as Shellay does a 28.3. The man is on provisional pole with less than 30 seconds remaining. Qualifying is instantly beaten by Itaven. What is Storm going to do up to the line? It is not faster, which is a big surprise, actually. What is Magic going to do? I'm not sure. Alex goes fastest with a 28.1. A really nice lap from the Ferrari driver. Let's go back on board with Magic, if I can just find him in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I think he's just started his lap in the Williams. He finished P5 last time out in China. Can he do something a little bit better today? He had damage multiple times in that race. He comes into turn 4. He's locked up slightly on the inside front, but that's a fairly tidy line through there. Is he going to do a TRL Manu Rodri through turns 5 and 6, turning in pretty nice? He's staying in 6th gear, not running out too wide. He short shifts up to 7th, and it's all looking pretty tidy so far for Magic.
Yes, definitely, as he is now entering sector number 2, he's about to head downhill into turns number 9 and 10. One of the most trickiest parts of this circuit, going down all the way down to 2nd gear, hopping over the curb, back up to 3rd gear. DRS will be open down the back straight. And now this is, I really like this straight because it not only was DRS open, but it's really hard to pass here, and it makes pass the racing very rewarding as now we go up to turn number 11 and uphill through the S's. And now this is, again, one of my favorite parts of the circuit where you can go full throttle through the right-hander. And now, obviously, this is a part where Magic needs to nail as he hits the apex just perfectly. As you can see at the bottom right, the fuel is blinking red, meaning he does not have much fuel left, so he has to keep that in mind. However, he could run out, but I don't think he will, as qualifying is over, so this will be his final lap, locking in the final corner. And off the exit, needs a fantastic exit. He does not lose a back end across the line. Let's see what Magic can do. Across the line, DRS is open, and pole position to 127.9. I think he's the only driver to dip into the 127s. Absolutely fantastic.
What a lap from Magic. Stunning stuff, and he has robbed Alex of pole right at the very death. I'm sure he would have had his heart in his mouth, seeing the delta in the top right-hand corner of the screen, knowing he was on for an insane lap time. To be able to produce it like that and not bottle it into that final corner, I cannot explain how much pressure there would have been going into there. He held it together very nicely and has set a stunning lap time that was actually faster than what we saw in the Xbox League on Tuesday. The checkered flag is now out in this session, and I believe everybody has finished their laps, is either in the pits or on their way back into the pits. But what a qualifying session that was, decided right at the very death.
Yes, I'm looking at a lot of drivers running out of fuel. They gave all it had, and some drivers not getting the result they wanted and running out of fuel towards the end of the qualifying session. Obviously, not the way you want to end it, not being on top. So Biko obviously retiring since qualifying is over. But again, I think that's one of the most interesting qualifying sessions I've ever commentated. I've actually really enjoyed that, as many drivers calling it quits, putting away their cars in the garages before this race starts. And now I'd like to do a little race predictions. Within the first couple of laps, how many drivers do you think will actually retire? Because my prediction, I do not think any driver will retire. I think it'll be a fairly clean start, despite having the first corner be one of the most heaviest braking zones on this circuit. I honestly do feel like maybe there will be a spin, but other than that, I don't feel like anyone will retire within the first few laps.
Yeah, there's always the possibility of something out of the ordinary happening, but yeah, I would generally agree with you, given the caliber of driver that we have on show here today. But yeah, I think everyone, after qualifying on the super soft tyres, everybody in the top 10, I'd imagine that everyone will be going for a fairly standard super soft medium strategy. Let us know what you thought of that qualifying session and what you think the race is going to play out like, using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. But here we go, the grid rundown for the Bahrain Grand Prix, the second round of this Esports Championship. It is Magic on pole from Alex in second, with Alberto currently in third. Last week's race winner, Big C, is all the way down in P9, 4/10 off the pole. But wow, just look at that. The top 10 separated by less than 5/10 of a second. That is insanely close.
As we go down to 11th place, Aresi in the Toro Rosso. Again, for almost 5/10 off, and I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the grid. I think every single person except TRL is within a full second of each other. So the top 18 are within 8/10 of each other. That is just incredible to what we've seen here in Sakir today. It shows how each driver is very, very close, to say the least. And I'm very, very excited for this Bahrain Grand Prix.
Indeed, it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how this race is going to play out. As the F1 intro is playing, this really does get you hyped for the race ahead. This is going to be one hell of a race. We have last week's race winner, Big C, coming from P9. We have F1 Italian Magic on pole, having finished P5 last time out. And Alex looking to finally take that top step, having been in second for so long last week. This is going to be quite a spectacle.
Yes, definitely. As we are just waiting, we are moments away from the start of this Grand Prix. Like we mentioned before, it's going to be a very fascinating Grand Prix, knowing the pace of every other driver. And I'm sorry if I cut you off. Discord just cut out your mic for a second, but I believe this Grand Prix will be very, very close. I do believe towards the end of it, I think the top 3 will be within 3 seconds of each other. I think that's a relatively general, let's say, prediction. I think it's the least I can say about this race. Every driver is very close, and it shows how competitive the series will be. But as we count down, we are just moments away from the start of this Bahrain Grand Prix. But as the 5 red lights to fill on our screens, lights out, and away we go in Sakir, and it looks like to be a fantastic start for Magic, but he's under pressure from Alex as he dives onto the inside to block as Alberto's on the outside. He'll be wheel to wheel entering turn number 1, as it looks like Alberto got the better start out of everyone around the outside. A contact is made, and they'll be wheel to wheel headed up the hill through turn number 2, and they'll still be wheel to wheel as they almost made contact in turn 1, as I'm not sure if there's a spin behind, but here comes Itaven right behind, but Alberto's going to try and hang it around the outside in turn number 3, going over the curb, and it looks like Magic will hang on to the lead. It was a frantic start, but Magic was under pressure, and he prevailed, and he's still in the lead. I'm quite surprised he was able to hold on to the lead, to say the least. I'm not sure if any spin happened behind, but I see a lot of drivers going single file, but look to 8th place. There's H Racing Green on the outside, and Nico, he's going to try and hold it, but right now Nico will be wheel to wheel with H Racing Green, and I think he'll go into 9 and 10. Nope, they're going to be single file as H Racing Green backs out of it. A lot of lockups as diving to the inside is Marco hitting the Renault of H Racing Green, and I'm surprised none of them got any damage from that. I'm not exactly sure if they did. They're wheel to wheel now for 2 single points. Marco against H Racing Green. They almost came together, as now letting him by to the inside. He may try to do the switchback, but H Racing Green falls into the 10th position. A surprising start, to say the least.
And Alex, from second place on the grid, has dropped down into P5. A terrible start for the Ferrari driver as we go on board back again with the leader, F1 Italian Magic. He's already starting to pull a gap for Alberto in second place, who had a stunning start. He had the lead momentarily out of turns 1 and 2, but as we come to the end of lap 1, it is Magic from Alberto from Itaven, as Magic sets the fastest lap of this Grand Prix so far. Itaven in third place, Jay Thorne up to 4th, and Alex all the way down in P5. That would have been such a frustrating start for him in this race. That is not what he needed at all.
I'm kind of surprised this happened because, like we mentioned with Alex back in the evaluation race, he spun himself out, and I'm quite surprised that he's fallen all the way down. Maybe Bahrain is not one of his tracks, but obviously it's only lap 2. We can't really say anything else about race predictions going on towards the end. I mean, we already said about race predictions, but just because someone spun out doesn't mean it'll ruin their entire race. They could come back from this. We did see Alex come back with, obviously a fantastic result in Bahrain after spinning. But like we said, despite Alex having a terrible start, he is still within that front pack. He's right behind Jemzoh, and obviously I do feel like eventually he could be catching up and having a good battle. But speaking about battles, it looks like Alberto has been gaining on Magic, who had actually losing back end off of 10 down the back straight. It actually looked like Magic didn't have the best start, and Alberto was able to gain on that after then Magic on lap number 2 created a gap, and now he's trying to reel him in back again. I do feel like we could have a battle for the race lead within these next couple of laps, but right now it is going to be time for Alberto to catch back up to Magic.
It seems that everybody in this front group is reasonably similar pace. They are all staying together fairly well so far. I think once we have DRS enabled, some fireworks could be kicking off. But on board with last week's race winner, Big C, he's up to 6th from 9th already. I don't know how he does this. Every week he seems to find positions off the start, just not getting involved in any drama, any contact anywhere, and somehow he finds himself in a good position in this race as Itaven sets the fastest lap of this race so far, and the leaders all appear to be converging on one another, and Alberto is well within DRS range of Magic. So as we come to the end of this lap, he could be shaping a move into turn 1, seeing as DRS is now enabled.
Yes, definitely. A lot of drivers starting to form in within the front pack. Like we mentioned about Alex, I think we jinxed him because we said he was gaining on Jemzoh. Now all of a sudden there's a huge gap between those two. So obviously I think it'll be the top 4 that'll be gaining on each other. Now it's time to get your popcorn, and maybe you probably already had popcorn, but time to get the popcorn, and you're going to see a fantastic battle brewing up within these next couple of laps as Alberto losing the back end all over Magic as he just lost a lot of time there. He did gain a lot, but lost that as he pushed too much within that sector there. But now in sector number 2, he's going to hop over the curb, and Alberto, he's going to have to try and find all that time back that he just gained within these last 2 laps. He's going to have to put a little, as it looks like actually somebody has retired from the session. It looks like birillodog has retired from the session, so I think both of us are wrong. I said nobody retire, and I did jinx it as that is the first retirement of this session. However, he was not within the front pack, so it won't affect them at all unless if we have a VSC or safety car. But coming to the end of lap number 4 now, within the second to last straight, it is Magic who has hung on and has led every single lap today.
He still has a lead of 0.8 of a second from Alberto, who will be picking up the DRS as we come on to the start, finish straight to start lap 4. Let's go on board with Alberto. How close is he to Magic? He's still a fair way back, but with that DRS and the slipstream, he will be able to keep pretty close, I assume, to that Williams, but it's actually Itaven who is closer to Alberto than Alberto is to Magic, and I think these top 4 could be converging into a battle fairly swiftly because of that DRS. Jemzoh managing to drop Alex really well, and he's staying really comfortably with the top 3 as Nico has got up ahead of Big C. We've managed to miss that one, but Big C is down into 7th place, and Nico is on a charge up through the field. He's currently in P6 and appears to be working his way through the field pretty quickly and appears to have an awful lot of pace in this race.
Definitely, as we do look back for a second, there may be a little difference on my screen compared to yours because on the front straight they were 3 wide and you sounded very calm, so and then all of a sudden it just glitched back. So there may be a little difference between our screens, so if we do say anything, that may be why. But Magic is hanging on to the lead 4 laps through. The Brazilian is doing a fantastic job of hanging on and driving the Williams. But like we mentioned, we did miss the pass behind, so apologies for that. But now after that pass, Nico has just created an incredible gap, and he is gaining on Alex for the 5th position, who did not have the best of start. Everyone is pointing it out in the chat. But right now for the 5th position, it could be up for grabs within the next 2 laps. But also speaking up for grabs, I'm quite surprised, again, Magic is hanging on to the lead. Maybe he might have DRS since DRS has been enabled since lap number 3. He does have a superb exit as Magic ran it wide, so there may be a pass up for the taking as Magic is going to go defensive. DRS will be available, and Magic will try and hang on as Alberto goes for the fastest lap. As down the straight now, Magic trying to hang on as Alberto has all the slipstream he needs. He may try and dive it down to the inside. It's a lockup from Alberto, but he's going to hang right back behind Magic. But as we go uphill in the turn number 2, over the curbs in 3, as we go uphill, again, a position could be for the taking as he's right behind Magic, and it looks like Magic will actually hang on. So we'll wait another lap to see what happens as Magic did run it wide. Magic will still be your race leader.
He has held on once again from Alberto, but he is getting so close now. I don't think it'll be too long before we see a change for the leader, and that's just because Magic can do almost nothing about that. I think if Alberto is close enough, Magic will be a sitting duck on the straight, and I think whoever is the leader in this 4-car train is just going to be a sitting duck on the straights. They have no DRS to defend with, and with 3 cars behind, it could get very ugly for them into turn 1. But Alex is now under pressure from Nico, who is on an absolute charge in this race. And I think Big C has lost another position. He is behind Shellay now. So Big C down to P8, the current championship leader. Will he still be leading the championship after today's race? At this rate, I am not so sure, but Shellay is now up into P7. A strong performance from him, actually. He's looked very good in the opening stages of this Grand Prix, but back on board with the leaders. I think Nico had a huge slide in the background there. He's kept it all facing in the right direction, but let's go back up towards F1 Italian Magic and Alberto. How close is Alberto? I don't think he's quite close enough to be going for a move here, Alan.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually increased the gap within the last lap, obviously using that momentum to have the lead within the last 6 laps. So obviously Alberto is still trying to charge towards the race lead. Obviously it feels like Alberto gains a lot through the corners, but half the time you see him losing the back end like he did just there. And obviously I think that's one of the reasons why he's still behind Magic, as he does need to find that time to catch up to Magic, as like it happened a couple laps ago. He wasn't able to capitalize on it. So right now Magic is still leading, surprisingly. Is hopping over the curb is Alberto. Not sure if there's any battles going on behind, just if you want to check that after this. But right now there is, again, the top 4 cars are still within a couple seconds of each other, and that appears to not have changed after the few laps from the start. So Magic is still hanging on as they're both losing the back end in turn number 8 as we go downhill into turn number 9 and 10. Locking up again, one of the most heaviest braking zones on the circuit, and very, very tricky to nail it, as it looks like Alberto lost the back end, and I'm not exactly sure when one of these drivers will spin, because I see every single time in turn number 9 and 10, I see these drivers losing the back end, locking up. Again, mistakes can eventually cost you. It could cost you, obviously, what's the word? It's rolling off my tongue on the wrong way, but Magic is hanging on to the lead. Sorry about that. But Alberto is second, and it could be a consequence. There you go. It could be a consequence for obviously locking up and losing the back end in turn 9 and 10. But obviously, Alberto has not gained up any time to try and actually use his DRS to benefit down the straight. So coming to the line for lap number 7, looks like most likely Alberto will be behind at Magic.
Agreed. Alberto is far too far behind. He's still 7/10 back, so that gap has increased by 1/10 of a second over the last lap or so. So these two appear to be very evenly matched pace-wise, and even with the DRS, Alberto cannot get close enough to make any kind of move into turn 1, despite that hugely long DRS zone and all of that slipstream that he will be getting, as Nico is now putting Alex under all kinds of pressure here. He's been following Alex for a couple of laps now, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think Alex is slightly starting to pull back to that top 4 group. Jemzoh is well within sight now. Alex is only 3.2 seconds behind the leader, and if he can get into the DRS of Jemzoh, I think he is still in with a shout in this race. We know from previous seasons on previous games he is very, very good at conserving his tyres, so I wouldn't put it past Alex making a late charge later on in this race.
Definitely, as he is falling back from the top 4 pack and having DRS enabled at 6th place of Nico. He is gaining time on Alex just very, very slowly, however, so we won't see a battle within these next couple of laps, but eventually I could see Nico passing Alex. I mean, like we mentioned, very, very early in qualifying, every single driver is on those super softs who qualified on those tires. Obviously, the drivers outside the top 10 may have switched to benefit their strategy, but obviously, we mentioned the 1 stop is a preferred way to go, so it'll be only 1 pit stop. So either if you want to do the undercut or overcut, you can only perform it once in this Grand Prix, unless somebody goes for 2 stops, which is very unlikely to see, and it only work in their disadvantage. As we head down the straight, I'm going to look up towards the grid, and it actually looks like TRL has disconnected from the session a couple minutes ago, and that his lap car is actually in the way of everyone else. So luckily, it's not really affecting everyone as it's just going through the car, but it looks like Alberto is getting a lot of time against Magic, so maybe he has figured out what not to do at this circuit. He is getting a lot of time back against Magic, so maybe within these next couple of laps, you could see a pass for the race lead. However, it's lap 8, and Magic is still hanging on.
He is still hanging on, and we expect the pit window to be opening within the next lap or so. You can get to the end on a set of medium tyres roughly anywhere from lap 9, so I wouldn't be surprised to see someone go for a big undercut and pit on the next lap. The super soft tyres do go off quite spectacularly, and we have seen in the previous races as well that the undercut is much more effective than the overcut or trying to do an extra lap on an old set of tyres. So I would not be at all surprised to see one of this top 6 train essentially now, as Alex has got into the DRS. That is crucial for his race. He has got into the DRS. I wouldn't be surprised actually to see someone like Alex or Jthorn try and jump the guys ahead, because it seems to be so difficult to pass on track. I think their best opportunity to get up the order here is to try and do it in the pit stops. I would not be surprised to see anybody go for an undercut within the next lap or so.
Yes, we were just talking about 5th place and before, and incredibly, Jthorn has actually fallen off the pace, now within the top 3 guys. It was the top 4. So obviously now, believe it or not, Alex is gaining on Jthorn. So maybe 4th place could be up for the taking, but I'm quite surprised to see all this happening. I mean, within 2 laps ago, Jthorn was all over Ven, the Haas driver, in 3rd. Now all of a sudden, he's not even maybe it's within a second, but now Alex is all over Jthorn for 4th place. So obviously, as it looks like, again, Dog has left the session. He's retired early in the session, just if anyone's tuning in right now. And if you want to tweet about this, just letting you know, use a hashtag F1 Esports. Forgot to mention that earlier in the Grand Prix. So right now, Jthorn is hanging on to 5th place, and believe it or not, and we were saying that somebody behind Alex was gaining on the 5th place driver. However, it's actually Shellay who's now in 6th. So a lot of drivers moving on positions. And I'm looking back, I'm seeing a battle for 8th place between Big C and Jemzoh. So obviously, Big C falling back massively, as it's now lap number 9, locking up in a turn number 8, I believe, as now we head on this straight, heading downhill to turn number 9 and 10 eventually. But on lap number 9, Big C not having the best of starting. He thought he could use that motivation towards an advantage, as it looks like Marco goes for the fastest up, a 132 flat. So obviously these drivers are starting to go really fast in this beginning stages of this Grand Prix. Obviously in the beginning, it's just really trying to stay off the drivers if you're going for an overtake, but really 9 laps through, not many drivers have gone for overtakes as of recently, as it looks like Jthorn losing the back end against Alex for 4th. Alex is going to be all over Jthorn down this straight, and most likely he'll have DRS in lap number 9. The question is, when will Alex get by Jthorn for 4th position?
The question is also, when will anybody pit, as Magic pulls into the pits and all of the top 3 have come into the pits? Surely that is going to warrant a response from Alex. Actually, Alex stays out. Jthorn is in. So all of the top 4 have pitted on exactly the same lap. What tyres is Magic going for? It is predictably a set of the medium compound tyres. Where is the Williams crew going to get him out in relation to all of the others? He's still in front of Alberto, and interestingly enough, Jthorn chose to stack behind his teammate rather than staying out an extra lap. So he believed that the undercut was worth enough that he would gain back the time he lost from behind his teammate. And I think H Racing, is that Timur Defeat in the Renault? It's all this big contact between the Renault and that Red Bull there. That's Nico, who's gone for an undercut on the previous lap. He's the one that pitted that we missed, who's had huge contact with that Renault. That was a really aggressive dive bomb. And Nico, I think, could be on course to jump Alex here. This is going to get very, very interesting with these different lap strategies paying off, as Nico goes for a huge slide on the exit of turn 4. That, however, is not going to help his tyre life in the slightest.
Yes, definitely. A lot of drivers pitting. I'm quite surprised that Magic was able to hang on in the position in the pits. I mean, Williams does have a fantastic pit crew, but then again, in the pits, obviously the first pit stall is going to be the Silver Arrow crew, and then a couple pit stalls down will be the Williams. But I'm quite surprised he was able to hang on. But because of that disadvantage, it looks like Alberto is all over Magic for 6th place. He's going to use a little curbing off to the right side to gain a lot of momentum heading up to turn number 11 and through the S's. You know, you're about to approach the right-hander. You can go flat out here as you go up to 7th gear, as he's going to be all over Magic. I'm 99% sure that he'll obviously get the overtake down the straight this time. So he's been the closest he's ever been in this Grand Prix. It's lap number 10, and he's the closest he's ever been. Obviously, DRS is obviously still enabled because no safety car has come out. So obviously with Magic and Alberto, we could see an overtake coming down the straight. However, we're not sure if Magic has defending skills up his sleeve, but as DRS is enabled, 7th place of Alberto is actually not anymore. It's about to maybe even 4th place. Yes, at 4th place, passing a bunch of people down the straight that pitted. It looks like Alberto was not able to go by Magic, despite being closer than ever he was to Magic.
And Alex, in all of that, has lost a position to Nico. But the big loser in all of that we failed to see at the time, is Ven is down to P7, and he's right at the back of this train. And I think Jthorn has actually lost even more than all of these guys, as Shellay is now ahead of Jthorn as well. So Jthorn has had a nightmare in the pit stops. He's dropped from P4 to, I think, what will be a net P6 or P7. He has dropped well down the order here. Not good at all for him. Alex is currently in P6, but I believe Kimmy and Ollie D and Big C as well have to make pit stops. So Alex currently in P6, but I believe that will be P4 as Magic still holds the net lead of this race, as he has done from lap 1, having started on pole position. Then Alberto in second, who has been stuck to the back of that Williams gearbox this entire race so far. Nico Fiore in a net P3 is just behind those two, and Alex just behind him, who lost out to Nico in the pits after Nico pulled a really nice undercut strategy, has managed to get ahead of him with Itaven in P7, who has lost a huge amount of positions in that, and that will be bitterly disappointing for the Haas driver.
Yes, especially, we were just talking about the lead, and believe it or not, McLaren Honda is running 1-2, not anymore, as it looks like Ali D has came into the pits. Again, McLaren Honda 1-2, can't believe that's coming out of my mouth, but here we go, lap number 12, it looks like Ali D will make his first and only pit stop of the day. From softs to medium tires, away he goes, most assumably. Obviously, his teammate has not pitted yet, so most likely his teammate will pit within the next 2 laps, obviously. Again, quite surprisingly, in the evaluation races, something I pinpointed out is that some drivers stayed out within 6 laps from the original pit window because they're waiting or just hoping for a safety car or something to come out. Most likely that won't happen today, but maybe some drivers were maybe out of the points, and it was really just waiting for a situation to happen with some other drivers. Obviously, they're out of the points. It's really just you know, a situation that you're not going to lose from because they're out of the points. But some drivers out of the points, making that big risk, making that big gamble, most likely won't pay off. But speaking about paying off, Magic is still hanging on to lead, which is going to pay off for him as he goes down into turn number 9 and 10, both locking up. And something I did notice, looking at the tire choices, not sure if it's for you, but not sure if you pointed out either, but it looks like Alberto's on those super softs, Magic is on those mediums, and Magic is still hanging on to second place now, which it is, and that's quite surprising to say the least.
On my screen, both of them are on the medium tires, so I'm not sure what is going on there. I'm going to assume that, seeing as that's what I'm seeing, I'm going to assume they are both on the medium tires. That would also be the obvious choice for both of them strategy-wise, and probably explain why they are such equal pace still at the moment in this race. But Alberto is all over the back of that Williams in front of him. This is a battle for the net lead of this race, remember. Alberto out of the final corner. Oh, a huge snap of overs there. He's closer than he's ever been before, though, with the DRS, with the slipstream. Can he fashion anything into turn 1 on that Williams in front of him? He's just not gaining. He is not gaining at all, and he's more than happy to just sit behind into turn 1, which seems a little bit strange. Makes you wonder whether he's running in rich engine revs or not, whether he's just content maybe to sit behind Magic and just save his tires. We've seen that strategy plenty of times in the past from various other drivers, so I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how much experience Alberto has of racing in these situations. I personally never heard of him before this Esports Championship, so I'm not too sure how his racing experience has been in the past, but that would be a very clever thing to do if I was him in this situation. Just sit behind Magic, use him for the slipstream and DRS, and just save your tyres. It would be a really clever thing to do in this situation.
Yes, definitely. If you're speaking about sitting behind the leader, it's obviously going to cost you. And speaking about that, looking back at third place, believe it or not, it's Nico Fiore in third place, who's actually passed Alex and Itiven, and actually Aresi has retired from the session. Lap number 13 out of 29, a disappointment, and the points he needed to get back into this championship hunt is now down in the garbage can. So Nico is hanging on to third place. That undercut definitely did work for me. He's actually, again, like we said, ahead of Itiven and Alex, who were originally winning or within the first 6-pack, as now Nico's gained a lot of time, and if the front two are going to be able to actually battle each other, just hold each other up, this is going to be huge for Nico, as it looks like he's actually gaining on the front pack. And obviously, if they keep this up, it could be a 3-car fight for the race lead. But now, right now, for the race lead, Magic is hanging on, with DRS behind is going to be Alberto. But again, inching closer down the straight, he's going to dive it down to the inside. And lock up from both of them. Alberto takes the lead for the first time today. Fantastic racing. However, we can't say that just yet, because now down the straight, trying to defend is Alberto. To the inside, Magic may try and go to the outside, but holding the middle lane is Alberto, and it could be single file through off turn number 3, but we will have a new race leader, and his name is Alberto in the Silver Arrow.
Alberto takes the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix then with an awesome dive up the inside into turn 1. That was quite something. He was so late on the brakes, almost Daniel Ricciardo-esque. He came from so far back and then managed to defend his position effectively into turn 4. And now Magic, for the first time in this race, is seeing another car for net position in front of him, which will be a little bit disturbing at this point in the race, as Alex is now under all kinds of pressure from not only Nico Fiore, but also Itaven, who was well up the order early in this race as well. So Magic now down in P2. He'll be looking to rectify that fairly swiftly, I'm sure, as Alberto appears to have already pulled a bit of a gap, which is really surprising to see given how closely matched in pace these two seem to be earlier in the race.
Definitely. However, it is the same gap that Alberto found himself in 5 laps ago before the pit stop window. So right now, lap number 14 about to be number 15, as it was time ticking on the clock, and it finally happened. Beekle is out of this session. Like we mentioned, he had a broken wheel. It's not surprising that this happened, and I hate saying that, but his wheel is broken, and not surprising that this happened. But a huge lunge in turn 1 for Magic, as now another runner out of this running of the Grand Prix. So lap number 15 out of 29. Magic is going to be all over Alberto within these next couple of laps, and I'm hoping Magic took notes when Alberto did that. Just being patient. Being patient is key when it comes to this battle, because Alberto, I don't know how many laps he hung on to a pass that he could have gone earlier, or an attempted pass. Something I noticed is that obviously Alberto was very patient. He waited almost like 10 laps as he drifts through the corner number 8. Wow, Alberto putting a little risk on there, but like we mentioned, these drivers need to be really, really patient if they will actually want to perfect these overtakes and obviously hang on to it. Now, like we mentioned, there's only 1 pit stop, so obviously these drivers don't have to worry about pitting again, doing the undercut or overcut. It's just down to plain racing, since it's a 1 stop in today. And something I've noticed is that obviously Alberto being patient. I'm hoping Magic took notes, because I think that's what he's going to need to do if he wants to get the race lead back in today's running of the Grand Prix.
Agreed. That is a very valid point, that being patient and not going for something rash when you could risk crashing is a very important lesson to learn early on in your league racing career, as Alex is currently running around in P3, and having finished P2 last time out in China, that will put him in very good stead for the final round of this 3-race championship. I'm pretty sure he would be fairly satisfied with P3 in this Grand Prix. While you were talking earlier, Nico and Itaven were going at it into turn 1. I think Itaven is looking very feisty in this Grand Prix. Does he go for a dive into turn 1? No, he doesn't, as Nico's fuel light was flashing momentarily there, which is not a good sign for him so early on in this race, really, as we're actually past the halfway point in this race, which I hadn't noticed has gone so quickly so far in this Bahrain Grand Prix, as the gap between the two leaders, Alberto and Magic, who've been scrapping away all race, is 0.6 of a second, as we have this beautiful helicopter camera following them through turns 5, 6 and 7 in that middle sector. This helicopter camera looks so nice. Justin and Chris mentioned it last night. It is a really nice addition to the spectator cameras in this game, but I have a feeling, Alan, this battle for the lead is far from over.
Yes, definitely, as it looks like all these drivers, looks like the top 5 are reeling each other in, and now the reason why I say top 5, because Itivan is actually around 3 seconds off the lead, but if you look at Jemzoh, he's actually 8 seconds off of the lead. That's a huge gap between 5th and 6th, and obviously he's going to be under pressure from Shellay and Ali D within these next couple of laps. So back up to the lead, and something we did not cover, or at least I think we didn't, Alex has moved into the 3rd position, so he has passed Nico for the 3rd position. So now it's going to be Alex's turn to try and catch up to the front 2, who actually are actually trying to go back at it again. Like we mentioned, patience is key, and right now Magic is being very patient on when he wants to overtake Alberto. However, he run very wide in this corner, so obviously down the straight, lap number 17, this could be an opportunity he's looking for. So down the straight, if he can get close enough, he could do what Alberto did, defending to the inside. He's not going to do it, obviously putting on a defensive move. He's going to wait a couple laps till that. So he knows how Alberto is going to defend him. He took notes from that also. So right now, what I think Magic is going to do, he's just going to wait until he sees a good enough gap to go through. Because obviously, if I was F1 Italian Magic, I would have not gone for that pass. There would have been a good chance that I could have been caught up in a collision. And obviously, knowing this Esports Championship, there's only 3 races. And knowing the first race didn't go the best for you, I would obviously go as most conservative as possible until you see a big enough gap to go for a pass. But right now, Alberto is hanging on to the lead. And quite surprisingly, none of these drivers within the top 5 have passed each other with these last couple of laps, knowing how close they are to each other. The question is, when will they try and pass each other?
It has been very much as you were within this top 5 for the last few laps. I think once Alex gets within the DRS of the 2 cars in front, which I don't think will be very long, he's now only 1.7 seconds behind the leader, so I think it will be fairly shortly that he'll start picking up DRS from the cars in front. But while we have a bit of a break in the action, let's run you through the rest of the order. So it is Itaven currently in P5 behind Nico, Alex, Magic and Alberto, with Jthorn, who has dropped a huge amount back. He's now 8 seconds, almost 9 behind the leader in P6, with Shellay in P7 ahead of Ollie D in P8, who's having a very impressive performance tonight as H Racing Green has retired from the session. Having finished 4th last time out, it's been a pretty shocking afternoon for him today, as Jemzoh is rounding out the points in P10 with last week's race winner Big C currently in P11 and dropping down the field. It has not been a good evening so far for the Williams driver. After an incredibly memorable performance in China, it has not quite worked out for him today. Although having got those 25 points on the board already, obviously it's less important for him to try and get as many points as he can in this race. He's already got a decent enough foundation to potentially take into the final race. Remember, it is the top 3 who qualify for the esports semi-finals in London. So Big C with those 25 points already on the board, you have to say stands a fairly good chance at that already.
Definitely, look, you keep mentioning Big C. He's outside of the points. It's shocking to think that last week's winner is already outside the points. Not only does it show that last week's Grand Prix had a lot of strategy involved, it shows how close everyone is within each other. Obviously, we mentioned everyone except TRL qualified within 1 second of each other. Very, very close. But now we are on lap number 18 out of 29. And quite surprisingly, there's a lot of drivers in the front that we did not see finish there last week. I mean, we saw Alberto finish in the podium, but that's really about it. I mean, we saw Alex finish in second. He's running in third, but other than that, Nico is running in the front. He fell back and finished outside of the podium position he expected to have. He's now in 4th, trying to chase down Alex. And speaking of chase down, could we see Magic go for an overtake? It looks like he's a little too far away from Alberto, but down the straight, lap 19 out of 29, 11 laps to go here in Sakir. So down the straight, obviously, I do see some lap traffic ahead. That's a Force India ahead of Alberto. A lap 19 out of 29. Magic, again, is playing the waiting game. He's waiting until when he gets close enough to Alberto to put on a pass. Maybe you could see a last lap pass, but then again, that's 11 laps down the road, and I don't like to think like that. But obviously, looking back through the rest of the grid behind ITVen, we mentioned Jthorn. I'm really, really surprised he's off the pace. I mean, he is only losing around a tenth and a half every lap. Believe it or not, it's not that much, believe it or not, but Shellay is in 7th. 8th is Ollie D. 9th is going to be F1 Kimmy, another McLaren Honda driver. Jemzoh is in 10th. 11th is Big C. 12th is Tim Fidier in the Renault. 13th is actually going to be Marco Ganu down into the pits. He's going to lose a lot of positions, but now it looks like behind. 14th is his teammate, Flores. 15, and that's it. 14 runners left in this Grand Prix, believe it or not. We started with 19. And if I'm correct, JustLoOller, we forgot to mention this. He is not here today. I can't believe we ignored this, but he is not here today in today's running of the Grand Prix. So that's going to really just end his chances of winning or just making the top 3 of this championship. So that is the full grid order. And with 11 laps remaining, about to be 10 laps to go, this Grand Prix is about to get started.
It really is. This top 5 train is now very much a top 5 train. Every single one of them is going to have the DRS. We're on board with F1 Italian Magic here as we're about to start lap 20 of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Is he going to be attacking Alberto into turn 1? Alex is now well within DRS range, but is not activating that rear wing flap. So I assume he must have some kind of rear wing damage as Nico is going ultra defensive into turn 1. Itaven trying to go around the outside at this very heavy braking zone. There's contact between the two of them, and Nico for now maintains P4. We've seen him be very aggressive earlier on in this race, and he's carrying on in the same veins. We're entering the closing stages now, and I cannot quite describe to you the pressure that these top 5 guys will be feeling at this point. It's been such an intense race. To maintain this level of pace throughout 29 laps of fierce competition is just, the concentration required is out of this world. So maybe they'll be starting to get a little bit weary as we come into the closing stages here, but this race is only just getting started.
Yes, so we just mentioned that. Again, very, very close. The gap is between the lead and second place of Magic. And it looks like a lot of these drivers, including Alex, is not enabling the DRS. So he is one of the drivers who's not doing that. Neither was Nico. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, Magic wasn't either. I'm quite interested because either in the Xbox race last week, the first ever race of the Esports Championship, I don't think DRS, like, some drivers didn't really enable DRS midway through the race. I'm not sure if there's a reason to that or not. But then again, I think it comes back to what we mentioned. being patient is key, and I don't think they want to enable DRS or get too close to the car ahead. And speaking about getting too close, that's what Magic is about to do right all over Alberto. DRS will be enabled here for Magic. He is going to use it, however. So lap number 21 now down the straight. He's going to gain a lot on Alberto. Can this be the time to apply his attack mode? And no, it is not. He's going to back off. A familiar move we saw like 4 or 5 laps ago. But heading through turn number 2 in the right-hander third kink as we head uphill, I think this may be a chance to be able to. He's all over Alberto as he's going to go to the inside. Magic may try and go to the outside, maybe try a switch back. He's going to try that, but obviously not enough momentum as Alberto hangs on to the lead. But there's a pass going up for the 4th position as Nico again hanging on to 4th place. Quite surprising that these drivers are able to maintain these positions so easily. I mean, it may look easy, but really, these drivers are putting on all the effort they have to try and hang on to the lead. They know they are fighting for these lives, because half of these drivers didn't even get podiums within this top 5 pack, maybe even 6, because Jthorn didn't get a podium either last week. So again, these drivers are fighting for their lives. They know that they need a good result if they want to go to London and Abu Dhabi, and this is really, really crucial with 9 laps to go in this Bahrain qualifier race. As Marco Ganu goes for our fastest lap of 1:34, but like we were mentioning, that obviously 9 laps to go up Bahrain in a PS4 qualifying race. This race definitely matters, to say the least, as these drivers are putting on full attack mode right now, as it looks like, again, Nico dipping out for a second, trying to avoid slipstream from the Haas driver, but I think maybe this lap or next lap, we could see Magic going by. I think he's taken enough notes from Alberto now. Lap number 21, about to be 22 out of 29. Down the straight, he's closer than ever, as the DRS will be enabled again. Alberto goes to the defensive to the inside. What can Magic do? He may try and go to the outside. Here we go, 8th gear, all the way down to 2nd gear. And Alberto is still able to hang on as diving to the inside for 4th place. Zaitevan not able to get it against Nico for 4th as we head up the hill. Going defensive again as Alberto to the inside, about to approach to turn number 3 or 4. And now about round to the outside, Magic. He may try and do this switchback, but they'll be wheel to wheel, but not getting enough momentum is Magic. So lap 22 out of 29. Alberto is doing a magnificent job on hanging on to the race lead. Question is, how much longer can he hang on?
That really is the big question here in this race at the moment, as we're halfway through lap 22 now. Magic is almost running out of opportunities here. Having had the lead for so long in this race, he is really struggling to overtake Alberto. Having lost the lead, he hasn't been able to get anywhere near looking like an overtake, really. Magic has been genuinely struggling to get past this Mercedes in front of him, as Alex is now activating his DRS, so I think he is right back in this one now, although his fuel light is flashing yellow again, which this late in the race is not a good sign. When you have to try and save fuel while also hanging on to the fastest drivers in the world, it's a difficult job to manage, as F1 Italian Magic now in that Williams is only 0.4 of a second behind the leader Alberto, as he goes slightly defensive, trying to break that slipstream into the final corner. But is Magic close enough into turn 1? That is the big question here. He doesn't look as close as he has been on previous laps to that Mercedes car, and we've seen how difficult it is for these guys to overtake one another. It seems that they're so equal in pace that getting past each other is really quite a challenge. Is Magic going to go for a dive? He shapes for it, but I think he was just trying to scare Alberto into going wide, which he didn't do. And
third place.
As Alex is now trying to defend, is he? Itaven's got past Nico. This is all kicking off here. Nico is trying to get past Itaven again into turn 4. Can he make it work? Is he going to go for a dive? Itaven cuts him off. He's gone for a dive on Alex. It is all kicking off here. Itaven on the inside of Alex into turns 5 and 6 as Nico gets past him again. They are side by side through 5 and 6. What a move from Nico. He has maintained P5, P4 even, but then it runs horribly wide. Wow, it is all kicking off here, and the leaders will be smiling looking back and seeing that, as Magic and Alberto have now distanced themselves from Alex, Nico and Itaven, who are going right at each other into the closing stages of this Grand Prix, and it is really starting to kick off now.
My question is, what were they thinking? Just because of that, I think they've costed themselves in this Grand Prix. And quite frankly, they need luck to catch back up. Because obviously, like we said, Alex was struggling with fuel, and he's holding them up. Obviously, I would have waited till an actual good pass down the straight instead of a lunge from Nico. And I'm quite surprised why they did that. And that literally just costed themselves from the Grand Prix. So right now, it is up to these front 2 drivers of Alberto and Magic to try and pass each other or just hang on to win this Grand Prix. As now DRS is available again across the line. It will be lap number 24 out of 29 now. And if I was Alex, I would be shaking my head. I would be furious at Nico for what he just did. Cost it third, fourth, and fifth of a chance of winning this Grand Prix. Ven is going to dive it down to the inside, locking up. Contact has been made, runs them one, and I think that's a little payback for what you did. I mean, if I was Ven, I would have been furious too, costed himself of a Grand Prix victory, or at least had a shot. So if I was him, I would have done the same exact thing. I would be furious at Nico. Though, like we said, Alex was struggling, so he did have a reason to do that, but the front two are just pulling away after the scenes we just saw. So Alberto hanging on, and now I think everyone has seen what happens when you try and battle each other, when you're in a 5-car train, when you make one little mistake or you lose a little bit amount of time, the momentum is just lost compared to the front two runners. So now, like we mentioned, it's down to the front two runners of Alberto and Magic to try and either hang on or pass each other, as Alex, again, has his fuel light at yellow. He wants to push, but again, something I am going to point out, I mean, why do you think, or how do you think he got past Nico? He probably put it up in a rich revs for a couple laps just to get by Nico on how slow he was, and then ran out of fuel. So he's probably been on standard or lean towards the end of this race, and he's probably going to be on it till the end. So Alex has definitely been struggling. The question is, will they be able to catch up? And a better question is, again, we keep mentioning this, will Magic be able to get by Alberto as we're about to come through the final corner? Lap number 25 to 29, just around 4 or 5 laps to go. Deers will be enabled as he's going to go defensive to the inside. Magic, again, he may try and do it this time. He's close enough. Alberto to the inside. Magic to the outside. May try and switch back. Hitting the apex. He may have a chance. One more time up the hill. Not enough. Magic will be behind Alberto. And again, he's struggling to get by as Alberto is going to go defensive to the inside. To the outside will be Magic. Frankly, I'm going to say this. I'm not sure if Magic is going to get by, as Alberto is going to be one of the most defensive drivers I've seen in this Grand Prix today.
He has done an awesome job defending so far. I don't know how he's managed to keep Magic behind him for so many laps. I can't actually remember what lap Alberto made that pass, but it was only just after they put on the medium tyres, I think. So Magic has been following that Mercedes for an awful long time, and he's had several stabs at making an overtake, but he just cannot get close enough. He appears to be really struggling to actually fashion any sort of manoeuvres. I think Nico and Ven are going to be going at it again fairly shortly. As Magic was he almost looking to the inside there. That could have been pretty nasty into turn 11, but Magic is for now content to sit behind. The gap only 0.2 of a second, and I have a feeling this could be the one for Magic. He's so close into the penultimate corner. I think he had to scrub off an awful lot of momentum to actually avoid contact there. That could have been, again, very nasty. These two getting very close to each other as you go through the final corner on lap 25. About to start lap 26 of this Bahrain Grand Prix, the second round of this F1 2017 PS4 Esports Championship. Is Magic close enough? Into turn 1, Alberto going defensive once again. How many times have we said that this evening? But Magic putting to the outside for turn 1 later on the brakes. Can he make any sort of move stick? No, he can't. Look at that defending from Alberto. Textbook stuff. Parking it on the apex, but Magic is going to have another look into turn 4 shortly. He's being shown the outside. Is Alberto going to run him out of road again? Magic trying to go around the outside at turn 4. Is he going to look for a cutback line instead? He is, and they're going to be going side by side again through this section. Are they? Alberto and Magic are still side by side through turns 5 and 6. Alberto holds it around the outside. What a move. Is Magic going to have a look around the outside again into the hairpin? Yes, he is. And they are still side by side. Magic and Alberto with an awesome battle. Rosberg versus Hamilton-esque, and in all of that, Alex has managed to catch back up. And this is all kicking off now on lap 26 of this Bahrain Grand Prix. The battle for the lead has turned into a 3-car fight. Alberto somehow is still maintaining the lead, and Magic, is he going to look to the inside? No, he's not. Wow, this is just amazing stuff.
I hate saying this, but I don't know what Magic is doing. That's literally the 6th time he has repeated a failed overtake attempt down the straight. If I was him, I'd change up my notes and try and change up that overtake, because obviously 6 failed attempts. Think about it. If you're going to go after 6 failed attempts of trying to pass them, why would you do it again? Why don't you improve on it? As now through the apex off 15, down the straight with 3 laps remaining. Again, Alberto's going to the inside. If I was Magic, I'd try something different. Maybe go patient, or maybe go to the inside. That's what I'd do if I was Magic. He's getting close enough. Try and go to the inside. That's what he's going to do. Dive it down to the inside in turn number 1. It's a double lockup. He's changed up his notes like we mentioned. He's not going to be able to hang it, as both of them are going to be wheel to wheel. Tries to run him wide, as Alberto still trying to hang on, as the Magic is right there. And again, it looks like he's going to try and go to the outside for a switchback opportunity, and this is what Alex wants to see. This actually puts him a shot back in this running of this Grand Prix. He's going to try and hang it around the outside, and it looks like Alberto may pull away through this S section, but then again, don't underestimate Magic, because he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve as diving down to the inside. The Ferrari, what is he doing? And it looks like Alex is under attack mode. It looks like he does have enough fuel. It's actually still in yellow, but putting out a fantastic overtake against Magic. I think he literally just said, you've had your time enough to try and pass Alberto. Now it's my shot to win this Grand Prix, and with just 3 laps to go, maybe Alex didn't copy the notes that Magic tried to get past him. Maybe he has more tricks up his sleeve. With 3 laps to go, I'm going to be very, very tuned to my TV screen to see what will happen between these front two. Most likely, they'll try to overtake each other in different spots, because Magic tried 7 different times of overtaking Magic or Alberto in the same exact spot. So the thing I'll be looking at is when and where when Alberto passed Alex passed Alberto. So locking up in the final corner, 2 laps to go. Question is, if Alberto can hang on, crosses the line with 2 laps to go, DRS will be enabled, and it looks like Alberto will go with the same defensive maneuver that has worked for the past 10 laps. Down to the inside will be Alex, and he's going to go back to the outside. Wheel to wheel with Alberto. Can he ring it around the outside? Hopping over the corner, contact is made, pushes him wide. Alberto hangs on, but the question is, if he can hang on for 1 more lap, I'm quite surprised he's gotten away with this stuff. And now all of a sudden, everyone is back to the rear as Alberto is going to try to defend to the inside. Alex to the outside, and out of nowhere, Itaveres come out of nowhere in this Grand Prix. He is gained back after these leaders are having a ding-dong battle for the race lead. And right now, Alberto is still hanging on. If I was Alberto, you must have 100-pound weights on each of your shoulder caps. And I'm quite surprised he is hanging on. There's a 5-car train including him behind him, and I'm quite surprised he's hanging on to the pressure. So with just 2 laps to go, Alberto, what is he going to do? Is he going to crack under pressure or pull off one of the best victories I've ever seen?
This is just awesome stuff on lap 28, the penultimate lap of this Bahrain Grand Prix. And we have a 5, almost 6-car battle for the lead. As you can see, Jemzoh in the background there. And I have to say, what a move from Alex it was. Down the inside at the hairpin is such an opportunistic pass. Something that Alex hasn't been known for in the past, his wheel-to-wheel skills. But that was really something to watch. And we had that awesome moment where it was 2x2 into turn 4 with Alex trying to get past the Mercedes in front of him. And Itaven trying to get past Magic. And Magic, the pole sitter, is now down into P4, but we're about to start lap 29, the final lap of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Can Alex fashion anything into turn 1 on the leader Alberto? He's so far back. Alex finished 2nd last time out in China. Can he go 1 better here today in Bahrain into turn 1? He's darting all over the place, trying to put off Alberto. Can he do anything into turn 4? That will be one of his best overtaking opportunities on this entire lap. Alberto has led so many laps in this race. He's under a huge amount of pressure from Alex, as he has been from Magic, from Itaven, this entire race. Will he crack now as Alex locks up slightly, but not as much as Alberto? Is he going to crack under pressure? This is the big question here as we go into turns 5 and 6 following the hairpin shortly. Is Alberto going to hold on? This Jemzoh actually in the background is looking maybe to get past Itaven, but this top 4 train is really, really closing up. Alex, can he do anything? He's going to have 1 more DRS straight left. Let's go on board with the Ferrari driver. He's going to pick up the DRS here. He's going to pick up the slipstream. He can see that Mercedes tantalizingly close in front of him. Can he do anything to take that victory? Into turn 11 we go. Trying to maximize the track, going full wide on the entry. Trying to go flat through this corner. Can he get close enough to Alberto to go for a move into the penultimate corner or the final corner? Are we going to see any change of position for the lead here? Alex locks up the inside front slightly. Is he close enough to Alberto? We have 1 corner left of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Alex is so close to that Mercedes, but is he close enough into the final corner? He's nowhere near close enough to go for a dive. And as we come up to the line, it will be Alberto to take the victory in the 2nd round of this F1 2017 Esports Championship. And there's a battle kicking off behind between Magic and Itaven as they're side by side up to the line. And Jemzoh and Nico as well. And wow, what a finish we have just witnessed.
That is just incredible as these drivers are crossing the line. And if you still have popcorn left in your popcorn box, I'm going to be a little surprised, because you just saw one of the greatest races I've ever seen. If you still have some left, there might be something wrong with you. But as you come across the line, I feel like I think the top 10 has already finished. F1 Kimi is going to finish an dismal 11th place finish for McLaren Honda. Not the best finish the finish they were looking for, as he's trying to match how his teammate did last week with 8 points, but I think that'll be it. Marco Ganu, I'm not sure if he got the fastest lap. I know there's someone with 2 laps to go that got the fastest lap, but Final corner for Marco Ganu. He will cross the line in P12 with his fuel blinking red. Behind, and I think it'll be either one other car left on the circuit. It's going to be Tim in 13th. The Renault will finish in 13th, and that will round out the Bahrain Grand Prix, one of the best races I've ever commentated.
I would 100% back up that statement. That was one hell of a race. That was just as much drama as China, but for all of the right reasons this time. That was quite a race, with Alex managing to pick up another second place, and Alberto, having finished third last time out in China, takes the win here today. And you can see his driver on that top step of the podium waving his hands in the air in jubilation as the Mercedes crew celebrates as well. Alberto is a race winner in the second round of this F1 2017 Esports Championship. Alex came home in second, another second place for him in this series, with Itaven actually managing to nab third place from F1 Italian Magic, who looked so strong in that race. And it is a 4th and 5th so far for Magic, and you've got to say, Alan, he's going to be very disappointed with that, having started on pole and led the vast majority of this race.
I would be disappointed too. I mean, he had around 8 laps to pass the leader, and Alberto literally said, like, one lap, he literally said, okay, fine, you could pass me, but I could pass you back. He literally gave him the opportunity. One lap he didn't even defend, and Magic cannot get by. If I was him, I would be kicking the rocks. I'd be very frustrated with that result. Obviously, his championship is huge, and the position he stands in is 5th before this with 10 points. So obviously, we're at the end of this Grand Prix. Some drivers with time penalties, but literally, I think it was the top 8 drivers did not get any penalties. So props to them. So I'm really surprised that Magic was not able to get by or just maintain a podium position. If anything, if I was Magic, I would have thought I would have had at least 3rd place locked up, but 4th place, man, I'd be scratching my head. And if I were him, I really need to come back in the next race. So I'm really shocked to see that result. I'm not sure if anyone wants driver interviews or if we're going to do driver interviews. Not sure if I need a word of confirmation for that. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what we'll do now, if we're going to do driver interviews or not.
I believe that is going to be it for the stream tonight. But thank you all very much for joining us for this evening's race. I'm sure you all enjoyed that just as much as we did. That was one of the greatest races I have ever witnessed. I'm sure Alan would back up that statement as well. But as I said, thank you all very much for watching and joining us this week. Make sure you come back next week. Again, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. We have a bumper week of esports racing for the final round of all 3 platforms. Let us know your thoughts on today's race using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. Thank you very much to Alan for joining me. Thank you very much to Codemasters and Formula 1 for the opportunity for AOR to host this esports series, and we will see you next Thursday. Goodbye.